Morning, folks. If everyone can take their seats, please. Díomh agus fáilte go léir go dtí chun dé le Gorman, ar an lá all-in seo. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to this beautiful county, this beautiful building in Wexford today. The sunny southeast, as always, has delivered, and the sun has been shining for everyone on their journey today. So I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to attend today in what we know has been a space again impacted by rising COVID numbers, which has impacted on our agenda and our attendance here today. I'd like to also welcome the people online who are listening in and watching in to our event today. So I'd particularly like to thank our Minister, Simon Harris, for his attendance here today. In what's a really busy schedule, Minister Harris regularly makes time to attend events of this nature. It's really good to see a strong representation of FET and indeed our higher education colleagues, industry and government here today. So I'd like to pay particular thanks to Wexford County Council for hosting this event in this fantastic venue. The views, the energy and the welcome we've received has been second to none, so thank you. I'd like to also acknowledge and thank the ETBs, some of whom left home at 4 a.m. this morning to be here, to present and to be available to us to discuss what they've done and the success they've made of some of their initiatives in green skills. I'd like to thank the ETB, Waterfront Wexford ETB. It may come as no surprise that the loyalty and the accent that you're hearing is a Wexford one through and through. So it gives me great pleasure to be here this morning. I reminded Tony Larkin that I think he interviewed me for the job when I originally started in County Wexford VEC. So how times have changed and how we still have familiar faces. So I'd also like to acknowledge the work of ETBI and the team at Solis in making today happen. Thank you. So some short housekeeping. If you can think about today being a time to reflect and listen, so our phones can go on silent or they could be put away for a while. In fact, Fiona told me something earlier that reminded me of stuff I already know, but it's always good to have the reminders. When those notifications come on the phone, you know, you get that dopamine hit and that heart rate increases. So maybe for today, let's be present and think about what we're going to take from today. I'd also encourage you to highlight the event on social media, on any of the channels that you use, using the tag #GreenSkills, #GreenFet. So we will have some opportunity for questions and answers from the audience over the course of this afternoon. The bathrooms are located at the entrance to your right as you walked in, and lunch will be served where our tea and coffee was served in the beautiful space. As I was talking to Dave Minogue, I mentioned how in the building of this building, who would have thought that the access to the outdoors would now be so relevant in the world we live in. It's also important to remember that the County Council offices are open today, so we'll be mindful of that in how we engage and navigate the building. And also just to remind everyone, the Council have provided masks and hand sanitizer at the entrance, so use them as you wish. So we have a somewhat shortened agenda, and as we said, our attendance has been impacted by COVID, but really today is about bringing the FET sector and industry together to get an overview of the national and international green skills agenda and research, to present the cutting-edge industry and education practices that respond to the needs of the newly emerging green economy, and to present the really important part of our morning, the graduation certificates to the graduates of Technological University of Shannon and Waterford Wexford ETB's NZEB Train the Trainer programme, which was funded through the Innovation and Collaboration Fund from SOLAS. So just to pause for thought, and I've taken this from a colleague's presentation yesterday to our board. This is the seriousness and the commitment SOLAS has to this agenda. So when you are pausing and thinking about today and driving home and reflecting on what you can do in this space, I'd like you to think about the definition that we've started to use, and it's a CDFOP definition around what is a green skill. So a green skill is looking at the abilities needed to live in, develop and support a society which aims to reduce the negative impact of human activity on the environment. So whether personally or professionally, we all have a role to play in this space. So before handing over to our speakers for the opening address, I'd like to acknowledge the apology sent by the Cathaoirleach of Wexford County Council and indeed the ETB, Barbara Ann Murphy. A fellow Bunclody woman, it would have made a really good scene to have both of us on the stage here this morning, so she sends her apologies and is ably represented by Deputy Chief Executive Mr. Tony Larkin. Our Minister will then speak after Tony gives us some words of welcome and introduction, and then Andrew Brownlee, our Chief Executive of SOLAS, will give us some of his thoughts on what today will bring. The opening session will be concluded by Fiona Maloney, the FET Director in Education and Training Boards Ireland, who will represent the views of our sector in her opening address. So I'll now hand over to Tony Larkin to launch our event and open the ceremony. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Nessa. I'm going to say, it's probably time to move on when the senior manager who introduced your conference says, oh, you interviewed me for my first job after college. Do you know what I mean, right? That's the first thing that goes through your mind. And the second thing is, did I give you the job, right? But it turns out I did, which was just goes to show I got it right at least once in my career. And the other thing I've learned in a very long career is that if you're speaking just before the minister, nobody wants to hear you. Be brief and sit down. So I don't intend keeping you very long. I would just like, though, to reiterate the apologies. It would be normal with a senior minister present. He would be met by the Cathaoirleach and the Chief Executive. Unfortunately, the Cathaoirleach is unavoidable for reasons that you all know. Now the Taoiseach has had it, everyone has to get it, it's party rules. So, and unfortunately our Chief Executive, on a sadder note, our Chief Executive had a very close family bereavement and is at the funeral, so he can't be here today. So I have, at very last minute, been asked to stand in, which is another reason to be brief. Could I just say, look, I'd like to offer the very warmest of welcomes to Wexford. We're delighted to have you here in the County Hall. It is, in case you haven't been here before, always this sunny. This is just the way Wexford is. So for your holidays next year, you know what to do. And essentially, this entire building, this entire space was conceived by the architects as a town square, a covered town square. And we just love having events like this at it. But unfortunately, in the times we've had very few in the last couple of years. This is one of the very first ones we've had since it opened up, and we're delighted to see such a crowd, and it's great to be here. I'd like to particularly welcome, of course, Minister Simon Harris. You're very welcome here to Wexford. To Senator Malcolm Byrne, the elected members of the County Council. To Andrew Brownlee, the Chief Executive Officer of SOLAS. Dr. Fiona Maloney, Director of Further Education and Training of the ETBI, and Kevin Lewis, Chief Executive Officer of the Waterfront Wexford Education and Training Board. And I hope the Minister forgive me if I depart a wee bit. I want to focus a wee bit on Kevin Lewis, who's a great friend of ours here in the County Council. It is really important that public agencies work together harmoniously. We all have our own kind of field to plough, but at the end of the day, we have to work together. And the County Council has absolutely excellent arrangements, our relationships with the ETB, and a lot of that is down to Kevin's leadership. So we appreciate that, Kevin, and we are delighted to be able to facilitate you here today. Climate change is the key I know there are urgencies, pandemics and wars and so on, but climate change is the challenge of our time. And if we're, watching what's happening with temperatures in the Arctic and the Antarctic and the increase in storm activity and so on, we have to get on top of it. The County Council is completely committed to the Climate Action Plan 2021 and our objectives under it. We have a wide variety of projects aimed at addressing our climate change agenda, and there just isn't time here to go into them today, but just very briefly I'd mention we have put €5 million in the last year or two of our own resources, it's not grant funded, it's our own resources, into changing out all our public lighting. We're the leading authority in Ireland for that, and we've changed out 90% of our public lighting at a cost of €5 million. We have dedicated in the current year over 100 acres of needed land to be rewilded as part of a rewilding programme that we intend to keep going year after year to increase biodiversity. We have a vast amount of work going on in our housing department, and we were the first local authority in Ireland to do near zero emissions social housing. And we have a wide variety of informational and other activities going on through our community sectors. So we're very committed to it. Of particular relevance today, I'd just like to highlight a project we have, in one of the many projects we have in partnership with the Waterfront Wexford ETB, which is the High Performance Building Alliance, involved in achieving excellence in the training of workers in the industry. And essentially, that is a joint project of the two of us, the ETB and ourselves. And we very recently, Minister Darragh O'Brien presided in the Custom House at a signing of the MOU with the United Nations as part of COP26, making that one of the network of centres of excellence across the world. So the Wexford Centre is one of, I think it's 4 at the minute, but there's expected to be 100 within a couple of years, centres across the world. So we're very committed in that space, and we appreciate our partnership with ETB on it. The Council is bringing a certain amount of stuff to that project, but the heavy lifting is done by the ETB's training programme, which they innovated themselves. And a bit of a shout out to Michael O'Brien, I know is in the room somewhere, was heavily involved in that. And I believe Ministry may have the opportunity later today to see that training centre, which we're now calling the kind of interim training centre, because we have plans to big it up and to expand it as we go. So essentially, the built environment is our key focus. We're a housing authority, a planning authority, a building control authority, and that's where we're focusing. And we have a lot of value in the skills trade. I think we have a lot of value we can bring to bear with the industry and getting best practice through the industry and encourage training and so on. But I won't go into that too much. It's something we talk about with Kevin and his team on a regular basis. I would highlight that this summit which I understand might be the first of its kind, I'm not certain, but it's an early summit, bringing together the further education and training industry, industry itself, and workers and learners for the first time. And there'll be an overview of the national and international greenskins research, a showcase on future thinking, and FET courses that are available in the emerging green economy. It's a tremendously important effort. We cannot possibly hit our targets without industry and education providers and public servants like myself coming together to make it work. The County Council wishes you every success with your seminar today. We are completely committed to the work you're doing, and we will be looking for opportunities to put our weight, which is quite considerable, and I suppose I'm speaking for local authority colleagues across the country. Our weight is considerable, and we'll be putting it behind the wheel here where it's relevant for us to do so. So I'd wish you every success with your affairs today, and I look forward to hearing some of the speakers later on. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for having me here in beautiful County Wexford this morning. I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm delighted to be here with my friend and Oireachtas colleague, Councillor Malcolm Byrne, to be joined by representatives of a number of local authorities. I've seen Councillor Kathleen Codd, Councillor Michael Maher, Councillor Mary Bowen, and my apologies if I've yet to meet other public representatives whom are here. I'm delighted to be with you today. Isn't it great to be out and about in places again and able to meet and gather like this and to begin to be able to discuss and brainstorm? Zoom is great, but you can't actually beat an opportunity to meet face to face, and you can feel a real energy here in Wexford County Hall today as people have come to talk about what one is the biggest issue facing not just our country but our globe, and I'll get into that in a moment. But Tony, where's Tony gone? Here you are, Tony. And Tony, firstly, I obviously want to send my sympathies to the Chief Executive on his bereavement, and my best wishes to the Cahirloch on her brush with COVID. But I do think it's very fitting that you've had an opportunity to preside here at this event today, because after 42 years of committed public service, I believe you're due to retire in the coming days. And on behalf of the government and on behalf of everybody here today, I really want to thank you for an incredible record of public service to the people of Wexford, and for all that you have done to improve the lives of people here in the county. So we wish you and your family all the very best. People in Wexford are clearly very proud. I was going to say, how do you know Nessa's from Wexford? I think she told us about 12 times in the time she was up here. So there's obviously a great pride in this county, and we're delighted that Wexford County Council and Wexford have an opportunity to host this event. Before I get to the event at hand, I can't attend a meeting with people from further education, from people with higher education, from people in Solace, without thanking you, and indeed thanking you in advance for all the work that you are doing and will be doing to support our national effort to stand with the people of Ukraine. I'm conscious we're here at a moment of, I think, excitement, at a moment as we begin to plan how we can take more steps, how we can develop our education sector better, how we can collaborate with industry. And I'm conscious that on this continent that we live, there are currently people fleeing war. I'm conscious that as I turned aside to expand a university in Ireland this week, university campuses in Ukraine are on fire. And I'm conscious that every day several hundred people are arriving at our shores, seeking refuge, seeking protection, and seeking our help. And I must say I'm really grateful for the support of Solace, the education and training boards, and our higher education institutions right across the country for the way we're already beginning to step up and respond in the generous, comprehensive and holistic way the people of this country expect us to do. And that is going to put us all under a lot of pressure. It's going to make people in this room very busy. It's going to take us away from our normal work plans, and we know that. But this is the biggest humanitarian crisis any of us have lived through. So whether it'll be the work that we'll be doing to roll out English language classes in every single county in Ireland, whether it's the work we'll be doing to change the law if required to make sure a Ukrainian student in Ireland is treated like an Irish student and can access financial supports and student supports, whether it's the work we're going to have to do together in terms of skills assessment to make sure that an electrician who arrives here from Ukraine or an engineer can have their qualifications aligned and can make a meaningful work contribution here in Ireland for the time that they are here, or whether it's continuing students who arrive here halfway through a degree programme. We cannot allow the Putin regime achieve their aim, which is to basically take out the next generation of Ukrainian leadership. We cannot. This is the next generation of leaders in Ukraine who are going to come here to the European Union, and they're going to seek our support to continue their education, to continue with their skills, to continue to be safe so that they can return to rebuild and reconstruct their country in due course. So I want to thank everybody in the further and higher education sector for the work that you're doing in that regard. I think today is a really genuinely exciting event. If I was to describe today in one word, I think it is collaboration. And I was struck on the way in with the exhibitions and the stands. I'm struck with the number of logos on the bottom of the screen here. How many of you have come together and pulled together to try and tackle a major issue? How do we prepare as a country to adapt to the green agenda? And you know, there's absolutely no doubt that climate change presents a huge challenge. No doubt about that at all. But we can grumble about the challenge, we can worry about the challenge, or we can try and address it head on. We can try and look for what are the opportunities there. How do we make sure we're ready? How do we make sure we adapt? And how do we make sure that we're ready for the jobs of the future, of which there are so many? So I want to thank the dedicated teams in Solace, in ETBI, in Wexford County Council for organising this Further Education and Training Green Skills Summit today. In particular, I want to thank Andrew Brownlee, the Chief Executive, and David Smith of Solace, who've been doing, really been driving the green agenda in the FET sector. I want to thank Nessa White for her incredible energy and all the projects that you put your mind to, and the big body of work you're going to be doing on our capital agenda now across the FET sector. I want to thank Dr. Fiona Maloney of ETBI, who obviously have oversight for the delivery right across our 16 ETBs nationwide. I want to thank Kevin Lewis. You can't just claim him in Wexford. He's trained an awful lot of people in rugby and Greystones. We're very proud of Kevin as well. But I want to thank Kevin of WWETB for his leadership. I want to thank Dr. James Carton and Kelvin Cardoso Martins of DCU Erasmus Plus programme, and Seamus Hoyne, whom I've met before, of the Technological University of the Shannon. Without all of your support, all of your dedication, and many others besides, we wouldn't be here today. I'm also conscious that we're in the southeast, literally days or about a month before you have a university for the first time ever. I'm not sure whether they've been debating a university from the southeast since God was a boy, but they've certainly been debating it since I was a boy. They've been debating a very, very long time about the university. Malcolm and I have talked about this and worked on this for quite a number of years. There's been debates, there's been false dawns, there's been stops, there's been starts, there's been rows, there's been hiccups, there's been all the rest. But all of that's over now. On the 1st of May, the people of Wexford, the people of the southeast, will finally have a university in your region. And I think you should be really proud, because the government can deliver a technological university, but the region must own it. The region must now say, and Wexford County Council must say, and the ETB must say, how do we harness the potential of the fact that we'll now have a university? What do we want to be the best, not just in Ireland, but in Europe in the southeast? What do we want to be known for in the southeast? How do we want to attract students from not just across the country, but across the European Union and beyond to come and study in the southeast? How do we now use this as an opportunity, not just for access to higher education, which of course it is, but also to actually achieve balanced regional development, to make sure that you start getting your fair share of IDA investment, to make sure that Enterprise Ireland can deliver and work with companies in the region. So this is a big moment. It is a milestone, I think, in the development of the southeast, and I'm so looking forward to being with you in May as we mark the formal opening of the Technological University, which will, let there be any doubt, have a campus here in Wexford, indeed in this town, in Wexford town, and I'm very much looking forward to the development of that as well. Look, when it comes to climate, everybody in this room knows the challenge. You're all familiar with the commitments we've made as a country through the Climate Action Plan, through the Programme for Government. We have to achieve a 51% reduction in overall greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. And we have to set ourselves on a path to reach net zero emissions by no later than 2050. A big, big, big part of that is how do we make our homes energy efficient. A big part of this is the retrofitting agenda. This idea that we're going to find 500,000 homes in our country, and we're going to make them warmer, we're going to make them cheaper to heat, and we're going to make them better for our planet. We've expert reports that could paper the walls of this county hall in terms of what we need to do to get there. But the big thing we need to do is start upskilling and reskilling and training people to be able to go into people's home to carry out this work. And we've seen so many, and we do see today across this hall, so many exemplary samples of the skills. And there has been a lot done, which I want to thank people for, to scale up that skills provision in recent months and maybe over the last year and a little bit more. So I actually don't believe, as I come here to Wexford today, that the challenge is going to be providing the number of training places. I really don't believe that, and from my conversations with Sullus, I definitely don't believe that. We're going to be able to train enough people in this area in terms of having the capacity to train them. That's not the challenge. The challenge is to motivate and encourage people to partake in the training. And that's why I'm particularly pleased that we have industry representatives here today, because we need your help. You probably need ours too. We need to work together, we need to work in partnership, and we need to get the message out there. Because when I talk to tradespeople, when I talk to plumbers and carpenters and electricians and the likes, sometimes I think retrofitting training is a lot more and a lot different to what it is. When I go on radio interviews, I get asked, when are you introducing that retrofitting apprenticeship? Sure, of course, we're not doing anything like that. What we're basically doing is working with tradespeople in this country to provide them with a little piece of additional knowledge to be able to operate in a green environment. That's it. It's that simple and it's that complex. We're talking about providing training that takes a couple of days, training maybe that takes 3 days, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. We're talking about providing training, a lot of which can be done online, and some of which can be done in person. And again, the South East has led in this area, because through Waterfront and Wexford ETB, you've had the NZEB training courses delivered. You've had the first training centres in Enniscorthy, which I'm looking forward to visiting later today, and in Waterford, and you've delivered the first trade-specific NZEB courses being delivered in Europe, not just in Ireland, in Europe. And like I say, I had the pleasure recently of visiting the Waterfront Training Centre. You even allowed me to try out your new virtual reality training system. I'm not sure I'd be allowed to retrofit anybody's home after doing that. There's some very awkward looking photographs of me trying to seal a window. But this just shows actually how we're even using technology to take people who already know how to fit a window and just to help them know how to fit a window in a way that actually protects our planet and makes it easier to heat people's home as well. So I want to thank WETB sincerely for the leadership role that you've played, and I look forward to visiting your Enniscorthy Centre later today. Really pleased that while I'm here today, we're going to have an opportunity to mark the graduation of NZEB trainers. And as part of a joint innovation, and again, joint innovation, people coming together, working together, collaborating, not operating in silos. We've seen WETB and our new Technological University of the Shannon put this in place, and I'm looking forward to having a chance to congratulate the trainers personally on their milestone achievement. This is exactly the sort of bold step that we need if we're to develop our skills ecosystem and rise really to the challenge of climate change and the targets that we have set. So we have to make sure, and we will make sure, we have the right training on offer, but we also have to make sure that we start attracting people. And my message to anybody working in industry today, and I'm asking for your help, I came here today really with one aim in mind, is to get this message out here, to please, please, please help us get the message out. This is the way you future-proof your own job, your own profession. If you're a tradesperson, if you've gone through an apprenticeship, if you're working in construction, and if you want to be guaranteed lots of work, billions of euro are going to be spent on this, 8 billion out to 2030. Please, please, please avail of this opportunity to get this short training course. It's free, it's fast, it's flexible in how it's provided. And there is growing evidence, not just in Ireland, but across the world, that the countries that have the best chance of maintaining their standard of living into the future are those that can address the challenges of climate and the challenges of digital transformation. So we have the pragmatic solution. Lots of great minds in this room have worked so hard to get to that point. Today we need to leave here with a collective commitment to start getting the message out there and communicating that and making sure that we increase the number of people availing of that training. And I guarantee you, as a government, we'll do everything we can to put resources in place to support that, to work with you on any campaigns that you need to get that message out there as well. And we will work with you also on other areas in the green skills environment, whether that's developing the wind turbine technician apprenticeship, which I had an opportunity to hear about when I was in Kerry, ETB, whether it's working with the higher education sector through Springboard and through the Human Capital Initiative to look at how we support professionals to adapt their own work in terms of sustainable building technology, conservation, sustainability. Under Springboard Plus, we now have 17 courses available in green skills and sustainability. And we're changing the conversation with our young people. This is my last request of you today. I don't think it's an accident or a coincidence that we have skills shortages in certain parts of the economy. I think it's a cultural problem we have in this country. And we got to get real about this, and we got to change the culture. The idea that somebody somewhere in an office many years ago thought we were going to reduce the discussions that we were having with 17 and 18-year-olds to a CAO forum was a big, big policy mistake. It has put massive pressure on young people at 17 years of age to lie awake at night and look at the ceiling and wonder, are they going to get enough points in the Leaving Cert? It has resulted in a situation where we have not trained enough people in the trades in this country. And we can talk about building houses till the cows come home in Dáil Éireann. I'm never going to build a house. Every member of the Dáil coming together isn't going to build one house between them. We need to get into our schools, to talk to the schools, students, to talk to the teachers, to talk to the guidance counsellors, and to talk to the mothers and fathers of Ireland about the need to have a broader conversation about what third level education looks like and about how apprenticeships and further education and training are really valuable, worthwhile ways to get well-paid, good jobs and good careers. And I'm really asking for your help with that. We've changed the CAO website for the first time ever. When students this year log on to cao.ie/options, they see not just the traditional CAO, they also see an opportunity to apply online for further education and training, and they see an opportunity to learn an awful lot about apprenticeships. This is just one step we've taken in terms of trying to create a unified tertiary education system that I believe will ensure we can meet the skills needs of our country now and into the future. So we've a lot of work to do. We have a huge amount of work to do. But I'm excited about it because I think there's an energy amongst the sector, the stakeholders and the public to actually make sure we don't just grumble about the challenge, but that we rise to it and that we make sure we're skilled, we're upskilled, we're prepared for it, and that we harness the job opportunities that exist in every community in Ireland to make sure that climate isn't something that we fear, but is actually something that we future-proof our country, our economy and our society about. So thank you so much for having me, Gurmagat.
Minister, Senator, councillors, distinguished guests, it's an honour and it's actually really exciting to be here today for the FET Green Skills Summit. I think it's a really important event. I think as the Minister and as Tony said, this is the biggest challenge. But today isn't about Solace and the ETBs suddenly realising, oh my God, like we better be seen to be doing something about this. Because actually, this is something that really builds on stuff that we're already working on what we're already doing, on what we're already committed to. And I think that's why the Minister sees the energy in the room and the commitment around this event. Because actually across further education and training, because we're so embedded in regions and communities, because we have a long track record of working closely with employers of all sizes, with the industries that are right at the forefront of this challenge, you know, in construction and logistics, in hospitality and manufacturing, because we put such a focus on the personal development of our learners as well as the technical skills that they need, because we do that in a flexible way that works with industry and works with the needs and commitments of our learners. And because ETBs are actually driven really strongly by an ethos of sustainable development, there was actually already an awful lot happening in the green skills space before it even became, I suppose, popular in recent times. So whether that was, you know, constantly reviewing apprenticeship curricula to update it, you know, adapting to electrical vehicles and motor mechanic apprenticeships, embedding NZ retrofitting fundamentals in plumbing and carpentry, you know, developing new courses that will give you the green skills to take you into exciting careers like the wind turbine engineering example that the Minister mentioned, you know, upskilling the workforce in sustainability awareness, helping companies to minimise their carbon footprint. There is already a lot going on. But we made a big pledge in the future FET strategy, Transforming Learning, that FET would be relevant to absolutely everyone, that it would be available in every community, and it would offer you a pathway to take you as far as you want to go. And I think green skills, a bit like digital skills, to be honest, is fast becoming essential, not only for most of the jobs that we're going to need to be doing in the future, but also in order just to live day by day in a sustainable manner. I think the government recognise this. They've asked FET to deliver on some very significant commitments. And I think today is about coming together to reflect on all of the good stuff that we've been doing, to consider the evolving skills needs and technology, and we've got some great presentations coming up on that later on, to understand the industry's perspective. It's great to have two real key industry speakers here today, and many more working with our ETBs in partnership across the country, and really talk about how we can develop, how we can grow, how we can mainstream further education and training in order to deliver on that ambitious agenda. And so when we think about this, we can split green skills, I think, into three distinct themes. Green skills for construction, green skills for careers, and green skills for life. On green skills for construction, you know, the climate action agenda is inextricably linked to the Housing for All action plan. As the Minister mentioned, we need to equip the construction industry with the capability to retrofit, I think, around 75,000 houses per year, certainly for the foreseeable future. This means building on the existing skills of the skilled craftsmen that are already out there on site, but also supporting a pipeline of future employees with the skills that are ready to contribute to the task. I think that was recognised in the National Recovery and Resilience Programme, where there was a commitment when that was signed off at the end of last year to establish 5 NZEB retrofitting centres of excellence. Of course, Waterford, Wexford, ETB are hosts today with Wexford County Council, and I do want to say an enormous thanks to both organisations for hosting us and in this fantastic facility as well. They were the pioneers in developing specialist training in NZEB and retrofitting skills in Ireland, setting up in Enniscorthy, where the Minister's going next, and also then latterly in Waterford. Another centre of excellence has been set up in the National Construction Training Centre in Mount Lucas. It's already expanding rapidly and tying in with a key role which is going to play in embedding modern methods of construction as part of that Housing for All strategy. Next month, I'm delighted to say Limerick Clare ETB will become the 3rd to launch an NZEB Retrofitting Centre of Excellence at its Green Innovation Campus. And that will start rolling out retrofitting courses straight away. We also have Cork ETB planning to come online by September, and Mayo Sligo Leitrim ETB, who do such great work in smart driving and a whole range of environmental and sustainability skills already. They plan to have a centre in Sligo offering courses before the end of the year. So the capacity is there, as the Minister has said, and it's growing. But supply, even now, outstrips demand, even with only 2 centres up and running. And we need to work in partnership with the construction industry, with other stakeholders, to get them to upskill a significant base of workers in the short term, and look at how we ensure that all of our apprentices are equipped with NZEB and retrofitting skills as part of their ongoing training. We also need to acknowledge that it's not a space that stands still. We need to continue to review and evolve our courses and make sure they fit with industry requirements, which are changing by the day. And the space where short, focused courses offering micro-credentials, as the Minister mentioned, is a primary delivery model. And I have to say thanks to Mary and Noreen and Louise and our team back in Solace, because one of the most important recent developments has been an agreement with QQI around a fast-track process for validation of micro-credentials. And that's going to help ETBs enormously in terms of, that agile skills development that we need to see as we move forward into the future. And also I think the role that this has played in upskilling instructors, supporting innovation across the 5 centres via the Train the Trainer initiatives, the partnership project between WWETB and Technological University of Shannon has been absolutely fantastic, and it's great to see them all graduate shortly as well. So that's the first area, green skills for construction. The second theme is all about green skills for careers. As I mentioned, there's a burgeoning portfolio of FET courses in a whole range of fields that will help you engage in exciting careers. From sustainable agriculture to sustainable fashion, from ecotourism to renewable energy, from smart driving to electrical vehicle maintenance. We're seeing specialist centres of excellence emerge around particular fields. Kerry ETB around wind energy. Longford Westmeath ETB looking at developing a specialist centre for electric vehicles in Mullingar. Sligo working on smart driving. Also, an event I went to last month I think is really significant, where ETBI and the ETBs launched an outdoor education strategic framework, because I think those centres around the country offer so much potential for sustainable and environmental kind of education and training in the perfect settings for it as well. So I think that's a really exciting development that will help us do what we want to do as well. But it is an area where we can do a whole lot more, and hopefully today is the start of a conversation about that. And finally, green skills for life. I think this is probably the biggest challenge, but also the biggest opportunity for further education and training. In the Transforming Learning strategy, we made a commitment that all FET provision would be used to develop critical climate change and environmental knowledge, that we'd effectively equip all FET learners with the green skills for life and make them the agents for change which can make a real difference in terms of climate action. It was a pledge that really resonated with the government. It was the Affect Green Skills Action Plan was one of the commitments in the programme for government. It was also embedded within the National Recovery and Resilience Programme, again agreed at the end of the last year, to make a green skills and sustainability module available to a mass group of learners as part of FET provision. And I suppose we are working on a two-pronged approach to that. Firstly, there's been a fantastic initiative by our enterprise employees and skills team with 6 ETBs, including Enterprise Ireland, Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, and the Environmental Protection Agency, to develop a blended learning Level 4 module on sustainability. It's a micro-credential which can be embedded across all FET courses. It's going to be validated by QQI next month as part of that new streamlined approach to approval of micro-credentials. The 6 ETBs have been involved in the development, should be able to roll this out straight away. The other 10 will be able to pursue differentiated validation, and they'll be able to do it 2 months after that as well. I suppose all we're asking now, there is the module in place. What we really need now is a commitment across all of the 16 ETBs to roll that out, ramp it up as quickly as possible, and embed it across all of their provision. But we do have to acknowledge that it'll still be an incremental approach. You know, it's a blended programme, involves 50 hours of learning. We need to upskill our practitioners in order to support the learning and offer kind of wider learning support. So we do see a need for a kind of open access online learning offering and resource that will be available for all. We're working on a tendering for that solution to do that as well. And again, that's something we need to get up and running in the coming months, and then ask ETBs to make all of their learners aware of it, all of their communities aware of it, and to roll that out across their programmes as well. So it really is, I think, an exciting time, a transformational future in delivering on the Green Skills agenda. I think in Solace we've put a dedicated focus on green skills with a director to coordinate activity. It's been fantastic to see the same commitment from ETBI and from the ETBs, and I think the future really is bright for us all, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the discussion today to start that kind of collaboration process and start agreeing on how we can move forward. So it really is exciting. Before I close, I do just want to say one word of thanks and kind of abuse my position on the stage. An incredible amount of work has gone into this, you know, both by Solace ourselves, and I'd like to thank David, Sophia, and Susan in particular for their work in arranging this. For Maria, for Laura, Fiona, and the other Maria in our comms team for coordinating this all. And on the ETBI side, to Aoife, to Fiona, and to Jacqueline for all their work and kind of helping put this together. Obviously the Council and the ETB for being such fantastic hosts as well. So look, I'm looking forward to the day. Thanks very much for coming to it and for tuning in online. And thanks for your support and really moving the green agenda forward. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. Minister, Senator, distinguished guests, it's my pleasure to join you on behalf of the Education Training Boards and Education Training Board Ireland this morning. As you all know, the world is changing faster than ever, and we must prepare ourselves for a future where economic and business growth does not come at the expense of environmental degradation. Sustainability is one of the most important issues in the world today, and as we meet the needs of the present, we cannot compromise the ability of our future generations to meet their own needs. Excuse me. Staying ahead of changes in jobs and skills is of the utmost importance. ETBs across the nation strive to meet the skill needs of the national workforce. And we use the knowledge that we gain as an advantage to stay ahead of the curve for our people. ETBs today, as we speak across the country, are continuously updating and improving their curriculum. engaged with latest industry developments and updates, and engaging with industry leaders to ensure meeting the needs of the labour economy. This also ensures that our learners and their employees remain agile in adapting the business model to take advantage of all new trends. Modern organisations across the world, including Ireland, are investing in green skills and sustainability, where we're reducing our carbon footprint and finding a means to gain competitive advantage, achieve cost savings and profitability. ETBs are supporting this move by introducing progressive green skills programmes, and they've incorporated sustainable practices into all teaching and learning across all levels of provision within the ETBs. Today gives us an opportunity to give you a sample and a flavour of the ETB programmes that are available across the country. And I would encourage you to take some time to look at the stands that are there with us today, but know there are many more programmes and many more initiatives across the country that couldn't unfortunately be with us today. I want to make a special, call out to our colleagues who are with us, particularly to Sean Burke and his colleagues from MSL ETB with the Smart Driving programme. You can't have missed the truck on the way in, which monitors drivers' existing behaviours and uses the information to teach drivers to improve fuel efficiency and road safety. By improving drivers' awareness of the driving style and how these impact on vehicle efficiency, drivers learn skills to increase fuel efficiency and lower carbon emissions. In Kerry ETB, which the Minister has alluded to, the wind turbine apprenticeship that was recently validated, where wind energy is at the heart of the Climate Action Plan, with the ambition to cut CO2 emissions into the electricity sector by 2/3 and to increase the renewable energy share of electricity demand to 70% by 2030 from its current 35%. So ambitious targets to be met. Our local hosts, particularly Kevin and Ken and Michael O'Brien, and the NZEB courses, which are the first trade-specific NZEB courses being delivered in Europe, which you've heard about today on many occasions, as well as the pilot virtual reality system that's been used to retrofit training. And you'll also have John Moriarty from City of Dublin is with us, with his colleagues, where CDETB, City of Dublin ETB, are leading learners in developing their knowledge and skills via the Climate Action Justice adult and community education programmes. So taking it out of the training environment and into the community and adult sphere, which is vitally important. And you have an example of the programmes that are running in Ballsbridge College, where they're learning to use recycled and upcycled fashion, which I think we all could use a little bit every so often. So the nature of the green skills in ETBs can be highlighted, I believe, in a few words. In the ETBs, it's mainstream, it's innovative, it's transparent, and it's at grassroots level. It's collaborative with our industry stakeholders, and it is leading the way in quality programmes and best practices. So please, I ask you to take the time to engage with our colleagues today and with our higher education colleagues who are with us, where we have many partnerships that have begun, that have borne fruit, and that I know some of us are engaged in many projects that we're awaiting results on. So hopefully everything will be positive into the future. So I wish you well today, and I hope you enjoy our Green Summit, and thank you for being with us.
So thank you to all our speakers at our opening address. And if I were to recap what the message was, I think collaboration was mentioned by every one of our speakers this morning. And this really is where the future lies. This is where our potential lies. And really, I suppose the other takeaway for me was around our requirement to think about future generations. How can we, and I said it at the outset, personally and professionally, so that retrofit of our own home, is that something that we go away today thinking about? I know my recent visit to Mount Lucas certainly made me think about that. So what can we do in that piece? Fiona has mentioned how right across the ETBs, green skills are mainstream, innovative, and again, that collaborative word. So that leads me nicely to our next really important piece, which is a really good example of where the future of FET and indeed the transformation of FET leads to with our tertiary education piece, where we have a really good example today of how, through the vision and leadership at Waterford Wexford ETB, we've seen the fruition of a train-the-trainer programme, which results in trainers today being recognised for their vision and foresight in stepping forward and making the move to, I suppose, do what we know needs to be done. So just to give you some background and context, Waterford Wexford ETB made a successful bid for funding through the SOLA Skills to Advance Innovation Through Collaboration Fund. It's in the title as to what we expect and how we measure those requests and those applications. So the bid had three components, one of which was development, delivery and certification of a Level 7 NZEB training course for trainers, the first of its kind. And this was to address the shortage. So we know there's a capacity requirement. We know, as the Minister said, we need industry on board, so we need your help. But we have the starting point here in how we can deliver on that. The timing couldn't have been better in that it coincided with the Minister's announcement in the increase in the number of NZEB centres and the retrofit centres across the country based on the Waterford-Wexford model. So this ceremony was due to take place before Christmas, and like many other events, it was postponed. But for me, it was always the right time today, because today marks the start of us formally recognising the journey of all the work that is ongoing across the sector, but also recognising the journey that these graduates have come on. So I'd like to invite Seamus Hoyne, our colleague from our new, well, sorry, Michael. Yes, no, I was very familiar with TUS. I suppose I'm just reflecting on we're going to be in the same place in the southeast in the technological university space. So this is exciting times. So Seamus, I would like to invite you now to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nessa, and still good morning, Minister, councillors, colleagues and friends. Maybe just before I do a quick few words, and I'm going to keep it short, conscious of time, I think one word that Fiona used was mainstream, and I often hear people talking about the green economy, and I actually don't like the word, because it's actually the economy. What we're talking about today are jobs that are in the economy today. The green economy is not this magic space that you go through a magic door in Narnia and that we all talk about. It's here, it's now, and it's real. The jobs are real, the opportunities are real, and the needs to upskill are real. So it's actually the economy stupid. You know, that's what we're looking at, and that is part of addressing the climate agenda. But I suppose on behalf of the President of TUS and our Registrar, I'm delighted to be here today to present the parchments. As a number of people have mentioned, this was due to happen a couple of times, and the graduates here today completed a course in the height of COVID. We had to pivot the course to a blended and online format. We eventually got to meet at the end of the course in Wexford in the ETB Training Centre. So that the President and Registrar send our apologies today, but are delighted that this event is happening. And I think, as people have mentioned, this is a perfect example of the collaboration between FET and higher education. And it's just one example of the collaboration, and it aligns with the further and higher education national policy, but also with addressing our climate action plan. So, you know, we're getting a double hit for our achievements. I think I would also just like to mention, I suppose, the opportunities that arise through other activities that are ongoing through the DASB initiative, the Digital Academy for Sustainable Built Environment, funded through the Human Capital Initiative. We are developing a whole range of new programs around energy efficiency, digitisation and circular economy. But we want to do that to make sure there's progression opportunities for people from further education, and that is at the core of the programs we are developing at the minute. I suppose on a personal note, I want to congratulate the graduates here today. We look forward to further collaboration and further rollout of this program, and the opportunity is there for any ETB to collaborate with ourselves and TUS or any of the current or existing and new technological universities. We're there to collaborate. We can only address the climate challenge together. So without further ado, we're happy to be able to present the graduates. So I think Michael is going to call their names.
Could I invite the Minister and RCE, Mr. Kevin Lewis, to join us on stage? Can I apologise before we start? There are a number of people who were unable to make the graduation this morning for a number of reasons. So they will graduate in absentia, and I will refer to that as I'm going along. Can you come up on this side? There's the steps here, and if you go down the other side there, you will then be brought to Block A over here for some photographs at that point. Is that okay? So if we're all okay, we'll burst on. Okay, now my teacher voice is starting to come out. Noel Beasley, Limerick Clare ETB, is graduating in absentia. So can I invite Richard Burns, WWETB, to join us? Thank you very much. Alan Clark, WWETB. Seamus Connolly, Laois Offaly, ETB. Okay. Michael Dalton, WWETB. Gary Grant, WWETB, in absentia. Pascal Hart, IT Carlow. The next man had an awful long journey down to Wexford. Basil Love, Mayo Sligo Leitrim, ETB. Ronan Lynch, Limerick Clare, ETB. one of the men we depend on to show the Minister how to work VR retrofit, Barry Madigan, Waterford and Wexford ETB. Thank you. Ian Maguire, Lee Shoffley, ETB. Christy Morgan, Limerick Clare, ETB. John Murphy, Laois Offaly, ETB. John would appear to be in absentia. Joss Power, Waterford and Wexford, ETB. And Josh is our other demonstrator of VR. John Ryan is graduating in absentia, and he's with Kildare Wicklow, ETB. Trevor Sinnott, Waterford and Wexford, ETB, is in absentia. And last but not least, John Tompkins, WWETB. Could I ask the group of graduates to join Emer and go down to the room in Block A, please, for some further photographs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael, Minister, Chief Executive Kevin, Michael and Seamus. So we may just allow the graduates to move now and go for the nice piece of photographs that were well earned. And so for our next part of our summit today, we're really lucky to be the hosts of the SLMRU in Solis, where our colleague Nora Condon is going to provide you with an overview of the national and international green skills research. The presentation by Nora this morning looks at a selection of reports on green skills and their implications for employment in the green economy. These reports point to many opportunities in the green space, new green jobs emerging, and essential skills. The biggest challenge for Ireland, as we've heard earlier, will be to upskill and reskill those already in employment across a broad range of occupations in the area of green skills to meet the evolving demands and needs of the economy. So the presentation will include green skills and occupations, national and international research, and the green opportunities for Ireland. So Nora, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So, okay, thank you very much, Nessa. So today I'm going to talk to you about employment in Ireland and how the green skills agenda has the implications for employment. I'll begin first of all with the green skills and occupations overview, then going on to some of the national and particularly the international research in this area before looking at what that means for green jobs in Ireland. So we heard Nessa earlier give a definition on green skills from CEDAFOP, and Andrew himself categorized the green skills and green jobs, and here is yet another set of definitions and classifications. But all of these actually overlap, and you can see the first one there, green skills, those that enable environmental sustainability of economic activities, and they're the skills that we need every day, not just at work, but also at home. Then we have green jobs, and they're traditionally what we would automatically think of when we think of jobs in the green economy. They're usually quite technical, it's quite specialized, and you cannot do these jobs unless you have the green skills. So we're thinking really here of a solar farm manager, a wind turbine technician. But less common, or at least not so much to the forefront of our minds when we think about green jobs, are what LinkedIn called greening jobs. So these are jobs that maybe 50 years ago would not have required any green skills. For example, a facilities manager. But nowadays, increasingly, their tasks require people to have a certain amount of green skills, and probably even a growing amount of green skills. And then finally, we've got greening potential jobs. So these are jobs you can do without green skills for the main part, but that some level of green skills, knowledge and expertise is required. Maybe, for example, a primary school teacher. You can be a primary school teacher without the green skills, but there will be certain modules that will be required to impart green skills awareness and green skills knowledge to children. And that's just one example, there are probably lots of more. So LinkedIn also looked at the fastest growing green jobs and the fastest growing greening jobs. And the dark green ones are the dark green dots are the green jobs. So they're the technical specialized roles. And the light green are the greening jobs, so less specialized. And you can see very quickly here that the greening jobs outnumber the green jobs. In other words, it's not so much the technical jobs, which initially would have been the largest growing jobs, whereas now what we're seeing are greening jobs really overtaking the number of green jobs. So the less technical outnumbering the more technical. Other research from the International Labour Organization looked at what sort of changes would be required in the skill sets of jobs, but they categorized the jobs according to skill level. Now, it's very difficult to measure the skill level of people, but one of the ways we do it is we use a proxy, and we use occupation as the proxy for skill. Another one could be education level, but the ILO here have used occupation. And for low-skilled occupations, the anticipated change to get to a green future involves generic change, so environmental awareness, the ability to adapt new procedures to new ways of working. And a typical example there would include refuse collectors and waste collectors, but it would also involve cleaners. You know, the waste collectors aren't that numerous in terms of employment in Ireland, but we have a lot of cleaners, we have a lot of security guards. The next type of skill, medium-skilled occupations, and that's where we'll find a lot of the skilled craft workers, particularly in construction and industry. And while there are some, I mean, they call them new green occupations here, but they've been around for a few years at least. So somebody like a wind turbine technician or a solar panel installer, they're new. But the greater change is going to happen to existing occupations, and that's really what Minister Harris was referring to earlier on today when he was talking about the window installer. Being able to install the window as you've always done before, but this time with awareness of the impact on the environment and being able to install that window in an environmentally friendly way. And that's by far the greater change for these jobs. And it's actually the same for the high-skilled occupations, scientists, engineers, and other professionals. Most of the change is going to happen in the existing occupations. Architects and engineers will still be required to design buildings, to design production facilities, but they will need to be able to have the green skills to be able to devise them in an environmentally friendly way during construction, elimination of waste generation, but also that you design a building that is energy efficient, but also a building where the processes of production are energy efficient and resource efficient as well, particularly in regard to critical raw materials. You know, the ones that are scarce, lithium and all of those sort of ones that we need for ICT. They all have to be used and reused in a circular economy and in an environmentally friendly way that takes into regard how we use and reuse our scarce resources. One thing to mention here as well is that the green skills are not happening in isolation. Much of this will also impact on how we deal with the transformation of technology in the workplace. So for example, even in low-skilled occupations, the increased use of sensors on waste dumps and on waste in general will require refuse and waste collectors to interact with that technology, at least in a very basic way. And then we need other higher skilled people like data analysts and software developers, logistics managers to monitor that data to find ways to improve the efficiency of how we manage our waste and how we recycle. Furthermore, the ILO also looked at the skills that will be required right across the labour force, regardless of the job. And if you just read through this list, maybe apart from the first one, environmental awareness and respect, all of the others, adaptability, teamwork, resilience, communication, and entrepreneurial skills, all of these are required to deal with the impact of technology, with the threat of automation. These skills are not unique to the green environment. Then we have another set of skills required more from medium and high-skilled occupations rather than from low-skilled occupations. And again, you'll recognize this list as being in demand in general: analytical thinking, management, innovation, marketing, consulting, networking, IT and language skills, and strategic and leadership skills. None of these are actually unique to the green economy. So coming on to the types of green skill, I said earlier it's difficult to measure skill level, and in the employment data we don't really have a classification for green skills, but the EU is working on that, and the European Skills, Competences and Occupation Classification, otherwise known as ESCO, has a list of about 600 separate green skills, and they range from the very generic, train staff to reduce food waste, for example, to the very technical, like transporting hazardous materials, or maybe in agriculture, fertilization principles. So the beauty of ESCO is that it connects these skills to specific occupations. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but to take the first one there, I'm not sure you can read it, but it's to train staff to reduce food waste. Down here at the bottom, they give the occupations for which this skill is an essential component. Then the second occupation is design heat pumps installation. This is a little bit different because the occupations for which this is necessary is very restricted. It's a far more specific and technical skill. But they also, underneath that, give the occupations for which it might be a desirable or optional skill. So this is a big leap forward in being able to classify skills, and we use this skills data more, not so much for employment, but when we're looking at job vacancy postings online, that we can take the skills and associate them with the occupations. More European research has been done in relation to the European Green Deal. So you're probably already aware, but just in case, the European Green Deal was approved by the European Commission. And it's a suite of policy objectives to bring the EU to a net zero carbon emissions economy by the year 2050. But by 2030, the implementation of the European Green Deal is expected to yield 1.2% more jobs than would have been without it. So that's about 2.5 million additional jobs right across the EU. But it's not evenly spread. Some of the skills, there will be a difference by gender, and there will be a difference by sector. So just looking at the gender first of all. These are the additional jobs expected to be created by gender. And you can see here, right up until 2026, most, or at least males, will outnumber females in these new jobs until then. And that's really because the European Green Deal impacts, first and foremost, the construction sector, industry, electricity generation, and wastewater management. And all of those sectors are male-dominated sectors. As well as that, there's an anticipated decline in consumer activity, and that's where females are employed, for example, in sales and accommodation and food. But after 2026, things begin to even out a little bit, and by 2030, the additional number of jobs is expected to be evenly spread between males and females. But that would have implications as well for skills training. You know, what sort of courses will be, and you know, the type of delivery would suit females would be important to consider. Then the next one looks at the sector. Now, I don't expect you to read this graph, it's very small, but the additional jobs created as a result of the European Green Deal implementation is expected to be most significant in water supply and waste management. That is expected to result in almost 63% additional jobs. It's a very, very large percent, but this in Ireland and also in other EU countries, that's actually a small number of people. There are about 12,000 people employed in that sector. So it's a large percent of a small number, which is a relatively small number. And the same then with electricity. What might be a little bit difficult to read here is that the construction sector additional jobs as a result of the European Green Deal is about 4%. But the construction sector is quite big. So they actually result in a similar number of jobs will be created. So what are the green opportunities for Ireland? Well, there was a recent report at the end of 2021, which has had a major impact, the skills for the zero carbon economy. And they focus on renewable energy, residential retrofit, which is the big one, particularly for the FET sector, and then electric vehicles as well. And they divide them into core occupations and emerging and niche occupations. And again, it's that difference that we were looking at earlier between the broader generic skills and the more detailed and specialized ones. For example, electric vehicle mechanic is a very specialized skill, as well as the retrofit, or at least as many of the retrofit skills. What does that mean in terms of employment then? Well, the environmental goods and services sector looks at the number of, well, for want of a better expression, green jobs within each of the sectors. And in 2018, which is the latest year for which the data is available, there were approximately 41,000 people engaged in what we could call green sector economy jobs. Most of them were in construction. Waste and remediation is about 10,000, and that's practically all of them, because of course that is an environmental activity, practically all of it. Services is a massive sector in the economy. It includes wholesale and retail, which employs about 300,000 people, accommodation and food, ICT, finance. But for the moment, the number of green jobs in that sector is about 6,000. And then all of the jobs in agriculture are about environmental protection, preventing pollution, eliminating pollution, and so on. And electricity and gas is particularly small, but it's a small sector to begin with. In terms of the potential employment growth in Ireland, the construction sector, practically all of it will need some form of reskilling, from the very low-skilled to the medium-skilled to the high-skilled. Only a very small portion of employment in the sectors actually will be new jobs, right? The rest are it's about upskilling and reskilling the existing workforce. The new jobs, the very technical jobs, are a small portion of the total employment. So to conclude then, The green economy for Ireland is an area of job opportunity. There are potential differences by gender and skill level, but it's appropriate for all genders and for all skill levels. The new green jobs is by far the smaller subset. The key will be the upskilling and reskilling for changes in existing roles, which really means, comes back to the lifelong learning part again. We need to engage people, including the low-skilled, to engage in the opportunities being offered right across the education and training system. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Nora for a really interesting presentation to us. I'm really glad we weren't relying on me for the technical skills to get the presentation up there, and Nora absolutely single-handedly managed that because it may not have been good. In terms of the presentation and what we've learned and the key points, we're going to share the presentation for you after the event, because really I think there are lots of takeaways and lots of food for thought in terms of where we go with what Nora concluded with, those areas of opportunity. What is it that we look at? What are the reports? What are the indications saying we should be exploring, and how can we do things differently in that area to address what's required? I'm also pleased to now invite Mr. Paul Jackman from the Irish Road Haulage Association to speak to us this morning around his experience, ideas and thoughts around what we're here to think about and consider today. So Paul.
Good afternoon. I'm involved in the management of the Irish Road Haulage Association, and in that position I developed a traineeship with Waterfront, Wexford ETB. I see John Cassidy here, and then that traineeship expanded out across the country. It's in 7 ETBs now, including a Mayo Sligo Leitrim ETB. And from that relationship, if you like, we developed the smart driving, spearheaded by Waterford and Mayo Sligo Leitrim. That process involved getting QQI Level 5 accreditation for smart driving. And just to give you a little bit of the conceptual presentation on the transport industry, we're here talking about greening for obvious reasons, reducing our emissions, of which transport is a considerable contributor to, so that needs to be addressed. We all drive cars of different makes and models, and collectively, including the world of transport, we emit 25% of Ireland's total emissions. So we're all doing our bit. Many of us are changing our cars, etc., etc. But what can the transport sector do? Not a whole lot, to be honest with you, at the moment, other than the modern diesel vehicle. And this is where a lot of people, diesel is now such a dirty word. Just to put it in context, the trucks of Ireland, the national fleet, do 1.7 billion kilometres a year, which equates to 4.6 million kilometres per day, which equates to 1.65 million litres of fuel consumed every day, doing the work on behalf of the national and international transport requirements. So where do we go with that? Okay, let's buy an electric truck. No can do. Not available, price prohibitive, big weight restrictions, range anxiety, hydrogen fuel cell. We're all reading about it. We all know what's coming. But to put it in perspective, 97% of the trucks sold in Europe last year were diesel, and that's the real world. I personally, we run 10 trucks, and they're all diesel, and they will continue to be so for a considerable duration. The government have pursued CNG trucks. They had a small impact, not functional, have possibly a future with biomethane. But in the world that we live in, the power that's required, the delivery, and the schedules that we operate to, you can't just be pulling in to get a charge on your way to do a delivery. It's just not feasible. So we're here largely talking about and the congratulations to the certificate recipients, but a house will burn in a year in fuel terms what that truck outside there will burn in one day. That's the scale of it. So in order to, again, we can change our driving habits, we can change our cars, but the truck world, what can we do? So there's two ways of doing it. One is improving the emissions from the vehicles that are doing the 4.7 million kilometres per day. And an example of that is outside our door. It's a Euro 6 diesel engine. And we all know diesel is a dirty word. But you can take it from me, if we drove that truck in here and it was in here since 10 o'clock this morning, ticking over, not one person will be looking for the window to be opened. They are that clean. And they've done trials in Munich where what's coming out the exhaust of the truck is cleaner than the air going into the air filter. And the truck is actually cleaning the air because the trucks are running so clean. And if you look inside the exhaust of the truck outside, you'll see it shiny. It's not black like the traditional trucks. They are that clean. And Euro 7 is coming with a 20% reduction. So technology is there to improve the emissions from the fuel that is being consumed and will continue to be consumed. The second layer then is to reduce the fuel that is being consumed in doing that work, doing that 4.6, 4.7 million kilometres per day. And this is where, in collaboration, and that word has popped up here several times today, the collaboration of two ETBs, Waterfront, Wexford and Mayo Sligo Leitrim, with the IRHA representing the industry, we developed the Smart Driving Programme. And the previous speaker, apologies, I can't remember the lady's name, but she referenced the greening of existing jobs in parallel with creating new jobs that are in the green sector. So what we're doing effectively is we're greening the job of truck drivers. And that's where it's at. There are 24,000 trucks on the road, presumably most of them currently doing the work of Ireland. And the driver behind the wheel needs to be greened in his task. And this is what we've developed. So in using this platform a little bit, if you don't mind, is the Minister, and I spoke to the Minister earlier, for every driver in Ireland to do this and give a potential 10 to 15% fuel saving in delivering their work, involves the RSA getting involved and accrediting the driver that does our course with 2 CPC modules, which is a legal training requirement the drivers must do. If that is done, every driver in Ireland will do this task. And it isn't only about a driving style, which is very much part of it, but it's about engaging and understanding the technology that's in that truck outside. As one, they all do it. That truck, if it does a run, will memorize the run. And when you're doing the run the next time, the truck will do it itself. And it'll know where to change gear, where not to change gear. There's 50 computers in the trucks, the modern trucks, with 220 chips. They analyze everything. And they score the driver back to how he's performed or she's performed. And similarly, they send that data back to the office. So this is the modern truck in the modern era. And there is no funding other than the smart driving. Like, drivers aren't, as part of their training or as part of their getting their driving license, they could pass here now in a 1998 or 1992 truck doing their tests to get their Arctic license. They're never introduced to a vehicle like this, and this is what the smart driving is about. So this is where we need to go in a sector that has been acknowledged as being the toughest sector to decarbonise. And we can achieve, in our mind, a 20 to 25% CO2 reduction, which is half of the target that has to be achieved by 2030, purely by embracing existing technology and existing staff, people that are involved in the industry, and just making the technology, supporting the transition to the new technology and training people to avail of, utilise, or best utilise the technology that's in those trucks. So that's my pitch. It's available at the RSA. As I say, I know I'm in a bit of a public platform here. I just want to reiterate it. The modules 1 and modules 2 of the CPC that all drivers must do currently is way behind the curve. And that truck out there would embarrass those modules. So the RSA need to come on board to help the state achieve its targets. So I just want to thank Sean and John Cassidy here as well also for the professional manner in which we put this together. It's not getting the interest in the industry that it should, and the RSA need to come in to ensure that every driver does it. So I just want to say it's very appropriate that I'm doing this in Wexford, which I think is the highest population of trucks per county in Ireland. And when I used to drive on the continent years ago, the joke was that if you bought a house in Wexford, you got a free truck, because they were just all over the place. So I want to thank you for your time. I'm shooting off up now to a joint committee on the fuel crisis up in Leinster House, so I must go. So thank you for your time, and I hope you found it interesting.
So thank you so much, Paul. I think Paul epitomises what we were trying to do today, which really was to listen and hear what we need to address from a government perspective, so this is much wider than us, and we know the response requires much more than the people in this room. So, I mean, look, every day is a good day when you learn something new, and I learned lots from both Nora and Paul in terms of the stats that were given, and even the potential that we have to make the reduction in an industry where we probably can have the biggest impact if we can do what we need to do. Okay, so next I would like to call on Marion Jackman, who's from the Irish Green Building Council. And Marion is going to talk to us about meeting the challenges of climate change, building within 1.5 degrees Celsius. So when we look at what the Building Council does, they work with organisations and businesses to celebrate the transformation of the built environment, the related industry and supply chain to one that is sustainable. How do they do that? Through leadership, education and inputting into policy right across government at local and national levels. Marion is responsible for the policy and advocacy campaigns, including #BuildingLife, which focused on tackling the whole of life impact of builds. She also manages projects Build Upon and Bus League, which are focused on the area of energy renovation. Guidance documents around retrofit of traditionally built buildings have also been developed by the Council and produced. So Marion's background is in stakeholder engagement, policy development and project management, and she has held various previous roles and also holds an MA in European Affairs and, not surprisingly, an MSc in Environmental Sustainability. So I'd like to invite you to the stage, Marion. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll try to get my presentation to work. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marion. I'm from the Irish Green Building Council. As it has been said, we are a non-for-profit membership organization, and we try to promote a more sustainable built environment. The way we do that, briefly, really is through education. Like, we have an extensive education program for mainly for building professionals. We do a lot of advocacy campaign, and we also have two rating tools. The Home Performance Index for sustainable new residential development, which look it includes 28 indicators looking at all aspects of sustainability in new residential development, and the EPD Ireland program, which is a program for environmental product declaration. So really it's about finding information on the environmental impact of construction products. But one project that has been mentioned and that we are currently working on is the Building Life campaign. So really the idea with Building Life is to develop a roadmap to decarbonize the built environment in Ireland across its full life cycle. So that includes a strong part, obviously, of that work focus on education. And similar roadmaps are being developed in 7 other European countries and also at European level through the World Green Building Council. So as it has been mentioned this morning, I suppose, we need to halve our emission by 2030 and to decarbonize really the built environment by 2050. So first thing that I would like to mention, because I think it's quite interesting in terms of context, is some work that we have been doing. The first piece of work, I suppose, we have been doing in terms of decarbonizing the built environment is trying to get a better understanding of the emission associated with the built environment and with the construction sector. Because as it currently stands, it's quite poorly quantified, so we did commission a small piece of work to a team of researchers in UCD. Like, you can find the initial findings on our website, and the final version of the document should be ready in May. But just to give you, like, I suppose, an overview of these initial findings, if you look at our national statistics and at the start from the EPA, it can be difficult to really know, like, what part of our emissions are associated with the built environment and with the construction sector. It's quite easy to see that we have about 12% that are associated with the residential sector, but if you start looking at emissions associated with non-residential buildings and even more so with the construction process in itself and manufacturing of construction products, it's far more challenging because some of these emissions will fall under transport, others may fall under manufacturing, and so on. So it's difficult, I suppose, to have the big picture. So what the initial findings of that research done by that team in UCD show is that we have about 20. Oh, that's interesting. It didn't look like that on my computer. I'm really sorry. Okay, so basically what you should see there is that about 24% of our emissions are associated with operational emissions, so really that the energy that we use to heat, to light, to cool our buildings, but that up to 14% of these emissions are embodied emissions. So that's really the emission associated with raw material extraction, with manufacturing of construction product, with construction actually of our buildings. So altogether that means 37% of the national emission, which really is very similar to agriculture. So I think if we put it that way, it just really shows the challenge, I suppose, that is associated with the construction industry. And what is interesting about this 14%, it's also, if we look in the context of our, I suppose, of the work that need to be done between now and 2030. As you probably know, we need to build about 300,000 houses. We need to retrofit 500,000 homes. So what we have tried to do, well, what that team of researchers did try to do was to do some projection in terms of what it means for our emissions based on the national development plan and also on the climate action plan. So what you see there is that if we reach our target, our operational emissions, so they are in blue on the graph, are reducing significantly. But at the same time, it's likely that the embodied emissions are increasing because, we will be building more homes, we would retrofit more homes, and that means we could really go over, I suppose, the target. So that's why it's really important to start taking really a whole-life approach to the decarbonization of the built environment. So really, yes, to renovate our buildings, to make them more energy efficient, but also to look at all the emissions that are associated with constructing buildings, with producing building materials, and so on. So what does it mean in terms of skills, I suppose, which is really the question today. I think the IGBC was launched in 2011. We started working on skills with TUS and with Seamus in 2013. And to be fair, and also as well with Michael in WWETB, and significant amount of progress have been made in relation to skills for energy efficiency in the built environment. And I think, as the minister has said earlier on this morning, and especially now with the rollout of the NZEB training course through the ETBs, we do have a lot of training program available across the country, and that's going to increase. We also have courses run by universities, ourselves at the IGBC, we are running a number of programs. For instance, one thing we are currently working on with TUS as part of the BuzzLeague project is really upskilling as well people working in DIY, hardware store, on NZEB, and also on water efficiency. So there are lots of programs available now, I suppose, to address operational emission. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying we are getting everything right, but if we compare to where we were a decade ago, I suppose really progress have been made. Now, saying that, I think there are a number of challenges that we still need to address in relation to operational carbon. Mainly really in relation, I suppose, to labor and skill shortage. Realistically, to build 300,000 homes by 2030 and to retrofit 500,000 homes, we really need more people. I know innovation and modern method of construction may be part of the solution, but we also need to look at how we can attract more people to the industry. And that's one thing we are really looking at as part of the Building Life roadmap. We also, as it has been mentioned, I think already this morning, we need to facilitate upskilling and to incentivize upskilling of people in the industry. And when we talk about facilitation, I mean, for instance, we were reviewing all the courses available for building professional in relation to energy renovation, and lots of them would be at the moment like longer type of courses, like 6 months to a year full course. So we really need to look at micro-credential, and we are working on that as well with TUS in terms of, and blended learning, and you can make it easier for both actually building professional and construction workers. And that also means in terms of construction workers as well, looking perhaps at on-site training, things like that. So things we have been doing over the years to support, to facilitate upskilling, beside working on micro learning credentials. We have also developed an application which is called the Build Up Skills Advisor app, which really was designed with, I think a few people were involved in the development of the app, like John and Michael. But really the idea was to make it easier for building professionals and construction workers to identify training courses that suit their needs, really based on their existing experience. And that's something we are developing further at the moment with TUS. But another part of it is really how do we incentivize upskilling? We were very happy, I suppose, with the recent announcement in terms of the national retrofit scheme that is going to provide certainty, I think, that the industry needs to invest in upskilling. But we probably need more than that. So what we have been working on is also trying to look at ways to incentivize upskilling. And one thing we are looking at is how we could possibly better use public procurement to incentivize that upskilling. And that's something that was mentioned in the Skills for Zero Carbon report that was previously mentioned. So the idea there, for instance, would be as part of public procurement, really to include a clause which is called an energy efficiency training clause, whereby you could require that a number of people working on the project, being a new build or a renovation, have to complete an NZEB training course. Now, Dublin City Council did use a clause on a project that was an NFIT project, so really a passive certification for renovation. We are going to test that again, hopefully with Wexford County Council this year, but we are still looking for public bodies that may be interested in working with us on that. So I'm just taking that opportunity, I suppose, to mention it, and please be in touch with myself or with people from TUS, Seamus or Benny, if you are interested in being involved. Finally, I suppose, because I've been talking a lot about the importance of addressing wildlife carbon in the built environment, and I think as well, if we think of in terms of circularity and construction, another thing that was mentioned in the Skills for Zero Carbon report was the importance to start looking at upskilling in relation to life cycle assessment and circularity and the construction industry to ensure really we reduce our emission across a building full life cycle. Now, as Seamus did mention, as part of DASB, we are looking as well as a DASB project, we are looking at developing courses in relation to circularity and construction. The IGBC is also looking at, is also already running courses on life cycle assessment. But obviously, I think we need more of these skills. I mean, it could be skills in relation to carbon budgeting for building professional, but when it comes to construction workers, it may involve, looking as well at maintenance, looking at what circularity means in terms of demolition and the way we build. So that's very new, and it's not something, I suppose, that is as developed, but we are currently working on this roadmap. We are hoping to launch the first draft on the 6th of May. I've been talking to many of you already, but really we need everyone input. It's not our roadmap, it's a roadmap for everyone. So please, I know lunch is starting soon, so please chat with me and I will be very interested in your input. Thank you.
Marion, thank you so much for, again, another really interesting presentation, and I think you've thrown the gauntlet down for anyone who is interested to get involved. When I was taking my time to go around the stands earlier, at the Choose stand, it was made very clear to me where we have opportunities and where we can build on. And again, you learn something different from every one of the presentations, but even the upskilling of people in hardware stores, something I had no idea of. And I don't know about ye, but anytime I go in, I listen to exactly what's told, because I usually go in with being told what to ask for. So I think we've a real opportunity to get people thinking differently there. So thank you for taking the time to be here today. Thank you to all our speakers from this morning. It's been a really fruitful morning, and now the time has come for us to take a break, have some lunch and enjoy the scenery. So I think we're back here in about 40 minutes, which is, what time, Maria? 20 past 1. 20 past 1, we'll kick off the afternoon with our panel. Thank you.